This is the fourth lesson of The Dream House by Craig Higginson, and the last lesson for the first part of the novel. This lesson shouldn't take you more than an hour to complete, at the most. If you missed out on the first 3 lessons or you didn't take good notes, here's a recap of what we already know. Pause the video and go over this summary of the setting and the characters that we've already met. This was taken from a blog post from another IEB teacher. In today's lesson, we shall meet Look Smart. It's worth stopping for a moment to read together this excerpt from the blog mentioned in the previous slide. And then, driving silently into the scene in a menacing-looking silver car is Look Smart. And from the moment he arrives, the narrative takes on a tightness that makes it hard to breathe. He lowers his window and inhales the smell of wet earth and rot. It's still a dream, a world without color or sharp edges, where everything fades into everything else. And were you to blow at it, it might disappear. He told himself that he would be coming here out of hate, or more accurately, out of nostalgia for a time when he could hate properly. He could turn away, he tells himself. It isn't too late. But it is, and he's pulled further and deeper in. This is a novel of past secrets, and how those secrets worm their way into everyday life. There's a story behind Look Smart's aggressive posing and the deep seam of bitterness in him. You will need to consider what it is that motivates, what drives Look Smart to return to Dwaleni, his childhood home. Is it hatred? Is it bitterness? Is it nostalgia? Pause the video now and read Look Smart's first section in part 1, from pages 33 to 36. We learn that Look Smart is returning to Dwaleni as the manager of the new housing development on the farm. His ties to Dwaleni are strong but troubled. It's obvious that something terrible happened on this farm, and Look Smart is returning before the Wileys finally leave to confront these demons from the past. Look Smart is uncomfortable. He should be returning in triumph with fanfare, as he is a farm child, the son of labourers who has made good in the city. He has risen above the circumstances of his birth. This discomfort is deeply rooted in the South African political landscape. Look Smart is a successful young black man who carries the burden of his apartheid legacy. It's as though he suffers from imposter syndrome. Turn to page 37 in your novel so that you can follow Dr. Zwichers as she reads Patricia's final section from part 1. This will be in the next slide. Pay attention to the imagery, particularly that of the camera, an item which captures moments in time, moments from the past that can never be changed. There's also a description of the Durban house, the dream retirement home to which Patricia can escape from Dwaleni. Part 1 ends with the sound of the screen door snapping shut as the adult Look Smart enters the farmhouse to confront Patricia.
Patricia, page 37 to 39. The sound of the car comes to her through the mist. An indistinct moan, far off, like the ancient bull calling out from beyond the marsh. She hears it, but she does not register it. She's too lost in the objects around her. Like the old Pentax camera, which looks well used but is almost entirely unfamiliar. So long ago it is since she last operated it, or even knew how to do so. Inside, there's a half-finished film, and she wishes she knew what images it had captured there. But it's too late now, for she has already obliterated the images by opening the camera up. Everything around her feels muted. Even the bright crimson evening bag that once belonged to her mother has been drained of its redness. Inside, she finds a used ticket stub for a play called Dream of the Dog, which once played in London, but has no doubt long since been forgotten about. A rubbish bag is sitting next to a wheelchair, waiting for its load of junk. But there's an overall numbness, a feeling of vacancy, a weight in the arms. Makes it seem impossible to move. She thinks once more of burning down the house. Were Rupert and George alive? They might have heard the car and slipped out, but Itunzini sleeps on. Beauty! Half an hour ago she heard the fly screen, followed by a clattering of pots. But Beauty would not be Beauty if she didn't need the usual summoning up. Beauty! She measures the progress of Beauty's feet along the corridor and wonders how they will sound in the new house. In spite of her back, she has decided to live upstairs, in the emerald green light, with its sunbirds and silver blue glimpses of sea. A lift has already been installed on the staircase for previous tenants. Recently, it was attached to a generator for when the power cut out. As for Richard, he will sleep in what was once the library at the back of the house. Well, it will be cooler for him down there, especially in the summer. And it will mean they'll each have a different view. Richard has gone off again with the spade. What must I do, missus? Get him! Oh, get Becky to get him. I will go. Ngiyabonga. The thought of the Bloodwood Grove returns to her again. The hillock with its mound of moss, wild strawberries and clover, and the small skull of a child, as fragile in the earth as a buried bird's egg. And Beauty, go to Rachel first. Then you can check where the stables, the dairy, and the chicken shed used to be. You know what happens when he can't find the animals. He goes out to look for them. He tries to herd them back in from the hills. Beauty almost smiles. Yebo, missus. In the front garden, the Rottweiler has finally started to bark. It is not a sound Richard would have provoked, or anyone else who is known to the farm. Mrs.? Oh, it's probably one of the builders wandering about. Patricia lifts herself from the wheelchair and lowers herself very carefully into her armchair. Beauty waits and then moves the wheelchair off to a tactful distance before she goes over to the sash window and peers into the mist. What is it? There's a big silver car standing under the tree. Angimboni Shayeli. Well, it can't have driven there itself. Maybe the driver has gone around the back. Must I go and look? Oh, it's probably one of the developers. It's Richard I'm more concerned about. Someone needs to find him and bring him in. If not you, then Becky, all right? Yebo, Mrs. Beauty leaves the house through the front door, and Patricia pictures her hesitating on the stoop. She likes the way Beauty tends to lean towards a thing before approaching it, allowing her body to feel its pull and moving forward only when her heart is in it. Etunzini's muttering continues as Beauty steps into the garden. Patricia can hear that the old dog is no longer responding to anything out there, but he is expressing a general discomfort back at himself. Beauty! Beauty! She's about to call for a third time when the fly screen at the back of the house creaks open, appears to consider its next move, and snaps back shut.
You should be asking yourself all sorts of questions now. Why has Look Smart returned to Dwaleni? Why is his return so furtive? And what's going on with Richard, who seems hell-bent on digging up a grave? It is up to you to annotate the novel, to dredge it for meaning that resonates with you. I am particularly struck with the description that I have placed on the screen. The small skull of her child, as fragile in earth as a buried bird's egg. It is an exquisitely painful sentence that speaks of the unbearable loss of a young child, of the snuffing out of potential. Pause a moment to consider the actual sentence structure that so perfectly evokes the fragility of life. This is the end of part one, the first act, if you will, of the novel. Let us return to this slide from lesson 1 as a reminder of the 5-part structure of this novel. Higginson has set the scene for us. We have been introduced to the main characters, and we have some idea of the conflict situations that must be resolved. In the next lesson, we'll start our study of part 2, the rising action. To finish this lesson, I would like you to answer the 7 questions in English Experience, starting on page 53. I have put the questions on the slides that follow, for those of you who do not have your books with you. Question 1 deals with the notion of the past and its influence on the future. For those of you who have studied The Great Gatsby, you should be reminded of this quote: "So we beat on, boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past." Question 2 will assist you with your characterization of Becky. Questions 3 and 4 deal with the Wileys, while question 5 focuses on Looksmart's motivation for returning to Dwaleni. It appears that for all of these characters, the past holds sway over their present. And this begs the question, should the past, memories of the past, be allowed to dictate our emotions and determine future decisions? Questions 6 and 7 require you to analyze the imagery of these two references. Looksmart's car as a bullet aimed at the farmhouse, and the different views held by Richard and Patricia Wiley. Pause the video as you complete your answers. These are suggested answers. Many of you will have written things that are relevant and would add value to these suggestions. Try to discuss your answers with a classmate. In question 1, the focus is on the unresolved burdens of the past, weighing down the characters as they attempt to move into a future that is satisfying, if not carefree. In question 2, we develop our understanding of Becky and the calming presence that he is for Beauty. In question 3, the observant Beauty astutely recognizes the emptiness in Patricia's life in terms of both her marital relationship and her relationship with John Ford. In question 4, we are confronted with the repeated image of a desperate, grieving father trying to dig up the grave of his daughter. It is a very literal interpretation of the idiom, to dig up the past. Looksmart is the focus of question 5. Here's a man who is grappling with his past, a man who feels that he's missing something, that a vital piece of his emotional makeup was left at Dwaleni. There's a sense that his return to the farm is a desperate attempt to find healing. Healing from what? The reader is left unsure. The image of the bullet pointing towards the farmhouse is surely foreshadowing a threat of violence that must be unleashed when Looksmart confronts the demons of his past. In question 7, the reader is made aware of the complete separation between Richard and Patricia. They no longer share the same view, both literally and figuratively. As always, a reminder to keep your own notes ticking over. In the second and third slides of today's lesson, I quoted extracts from a blog post by another IEB English teacher. The blog is called English Inspiration and contains a wealth of information for grade 12 students. You will find notes here on the Dream House and on Antony and Cleopatra and some of your prescribed poems. You will find the link to the blog on the last slide. The same teacher duplicates her blog post content on her Facebook page, if that is more convenient for you. We have reached the end of part 1 of the Dream House. Thank you for watching, and good luck as you deal with the challenges of the extended lockdown. Until the next lesson, goodbye everyone.